One name, I don't know.
Okay, hi, welcome everyone to the information session for the Early Support for Infants and Toddlers request for applications. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. I'm Debbie Donnellan, King County's Early Support for Infants and Toddlers lead, and I'll be joined by my colleagues, Wendy Harris, the Prenatal to 5 team lead, and Liz Espinosa-Snow, who's leading the RFQ RFA process. Okay, just want to let you all know that we are recording this and we will be able to post it into Zoom Grants for your review later. Our agenda today will be an overview of Best Starts for Kids, reviewing the key elements of the RFA, and a question and answer period. Please do feel free to type in questions or comments throughout, and I'll read those as I'm able. But if we don't get to it during the presentation, we will at the end, and at that time at the end we will also unmute you all on our end, and then you'll have to unmute yourself and you'll have the ability to ask questions out loud. So this info session right now is for the request for applications. So it's specific to that, which is only for existing ESIT provider agencies, as well as what we call special projects that are through our existing provider agencies. If you are interested in applying for the request for qualifications, there is another info session for that at 3 o'clock. So starting with the Best Starts for Kids overview. The vision of Best Starts for Kids is to see more babies born healthy, more kids thrive, and more young people grow up to be happy, healthy, successful adults. This is a straightforward vision, but actually it's the most comprehensive approach toward this work in the country. Best Starts for Kids is shaped by an equity and social justice lens. So what does this mean? Best Starts for Kids recognizes that persistent inequities exist, especially by race and place, that in many cases are getting worse and threatening collective prosperity of families in our city and county. Best Starts for Kids is working to invest in organizations that are reflective of and embedded in the communities they serve, and those that recognize and address disparities and disproportionalities, as well as the strengths, assets, and ingenuity communities possess in the face of these inequities. The way that Best Starts for Kids does this work is through promotion, prevention, early intervention, and policy and systems change. The Early Support for Infants and Toddlers program combines promotion, prevention, and early intervention. And in practice, the way it looks is Best Starts for Kids invests on average $65 million per year. How are the funds organized? They are an overhaul. The Best Starts for Kids is an overall cohesive strategy with 4 focus areas. Invest early before age 5, make investments at critical points before age 24. Healthy communities, ensure that all children and youth have opportunities to live in thriving homes, schools, and communities. And data and evaluation, find out what's going well so we can do more of it. As you might guess, the ESIT request for applications that we're reviewing lives in the investing early bucket, which is half of the levy investments. So now that we did that brief overview of Best Starts for Kids, we'll move into information more specific to this request for applications. So I have a slide here. If you're all existing providers, I can't tell who is all on the phone, I'll review this in case you're not an existing provider. What is Early Support for Infants and Toddlers? Comprehensive services and supports to enhance a child's development and help parents understand how to help their children grow and develop, tailored to meet the child and family's individual needs, and available to all children age birth to 3 with developmental delays or disabilities and their families regardless of income. As you develop your application, you'll want to think about the priority areas. So stakeholders developed 4 priority areas for this RFA based on available data about children and family currently being served or not being served by ESIT. I'll briefly walk through each one. Priority area 1 is to ensure equitable services by geography. So increase ESIT provider capacity in geographically underserved areas of King County, including Vashon Island, Skykomish, Auburn, and Tukwila school districts. Priority area 2 is to ensure equitable services by race and ethnicity. So ensure countywide ESIT provider capacity to address specific culture and linguistic needs of children and their families, whose identities include Black or African American, Latino, Asian, American Indian or Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. And to ensure provider capacity to increase culturally and linguistically relevant ESIT services for children of color in Seattle, Renton, and Tukwila school districts and surrounding areas. Priority area 3 is to reach and serve eligible children. Increase the capacity of the ESIT system to reach and serve 8% of the birth to 3 population in King County. Increase capacity of the ESIT system to serve young children and their families who are experiencing homelessness. And priority area 4 is support social emotional well-being of infants, toddlers, and their families. Increase availability of infant mental health providers and access to infant mental health services to promote positive social emotional skills and relationships. And increase ESIT provider capacity to meet social emotional well-being of the diverse children and families in King County, especially for children and families of color. When you review the rating criteria in the application, you'll see these concepts embedded in the questions and the rating criteria. And then I'm going to just talk briefly about data and evaluation. The principles guiding our data and evaluation work are partnership, collaboration, and accessibility. Today, I'll talk about what we're looking for regarding data and applications, as this is a stage in the process you'll be a big part of. I'll talk about what we want to see and some data sources that you might find helpful. We value many different kinds of data, including community-generated data. So we'll highlight a few data sources, but you're not restricted to these. We encourage you to think broadly about what different kinds of data could tell your story. We're seeking both data related to your program or special project and how it relates to data for the communities in your catchment area. If you're using qualitative data in the form of family stories or images, always remember to protect confidentiality. These are some available data sources, and we'll post the PowerPoint in Zoom Grants, and you would be able to click on those links. Here are some tips. We value different kinds of data, including stories. The data sources provided are meant to eliminate extra work, not to dictate the data you use. And you can contact a technical assistance provider if you'd like additional support. And I did want to show you what one of those data sources looks like, the Best Starts for Kids indicators. If you click, that link is indicated here, kingcounty.gov/BSK indicators. And this is just what that page looks like, where you can find data. In addition, we've reviewed data at recent ESIT provider meetings, and we've included that data in the RFA library. And it's ESIT data PowerPoint. And moving on to evaluations, all programs will be required to participate in evaluation efforts, including reporting on performance measures, but no evaluation plan is required with your application. So those of you who've been working with us on a logic model, we had a meeting just on Monday to start our logic model, which will inform our evaluation plan. So our shared co-developed evaluation plan we developed this fall. And then ESIT special projects, which do not already have an evaluation plan, will develop an approach to performance measurement aligned either with the ESIT evaluation plan and or related Best Starts for Kids strategies evaluation plan, if that's applicable. This is just to share the timeline. So this, right now we're at the first online information session. We have an in-person information session next week. There's a deadline to request TA from the technical assistance providers, September 5th. Deadline to contact us with questions is September 6th. Applications are due September 17th at 11:59 p.m. And then you'll see the rest of the timeline here into through the end of the year. So applications will be assessed based on the rating criteria. The criteria relate to ESIT specific things like family engagement, transitions, and equity as they relate to ESIT. The priority areas, which we've already talked about, and your fiscal responses. So do please refer to the rating criteria in developing your application. All applications will be reviewed and scored by a panel of community members, subject matter experts, and King County staff. And we want to let you know that free technical assistance is available to support organizations and eliminate barriers. So TA providers can assist in determine, this is actually, there's an error on the slide that I didn't catch. So it's more for you, for ESIT providers, it would be about providing guidance on how to best answer questions and support application review, including editing and budget review. You are all an appropriate fit for this application.
As an existing
ESIT provider. And then there's one more info session that we mentioned, which is next Wednesday for the RFA, August 21st at 10:30 at the Renton Library on Mill Avenue. You can email questions to Liz and have access to that technical assistance. There's additional resources in the RFA library. The checklist is a resource to make sure your application is complete. And there's a glossary of terms for your reference. And so now we'll just open it up for questions. I see that there have been 3, but I haven't seen what they are. And we're going to unmute everyone. And so if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and jump in. Oh, that's okay. I hear someone unmuted, but I'm not sure if you have a question.
It's just Kathy Fortner. I'm unable to join. The Skype link isn't working for me, so I'm just listening on the phone, so I can't see anything that you're referring to.
Okay, we will, hi Kathy. We will post the PowerPoint in the Zoom Grants library. For most of the slides, I was reading from the slides. And are you at a computer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, could we, I don't know how to, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm in my office. I just can't get the Skype link to work.
So we're also recording this right now, and we'll post it to the blog along with the PowerPoint slide tomorrow.
Thank you.
This is Wendy. One thing I'd like to say about any questions that you might have is that we're happy to answer your questions right now. We'll also record the questions and write them up and include them in the next FAQ. So we'll take questions throughout this process and then write an FAQ, say questions through Friday, make sure an FAQ is posted every Wednesday. So these questions will be part of the first frequently asked questions. So ask, even if you think it's not a, it can be any kind of question.
Oh, I see someone typing. So the question is, sorry if you covered this already, but have you gone over the funding amounts already? Will it be the same as what we currently receive? That's a good question.
That's a great question. We anticipate for ESIT program services, we don't anticipate that the ESIT BSK rate will change. And it is the only item in play for this request for applications. In order to continue getting the BSK per child rate, there'll be, this application has to be made by existing ESIT providers. In terms of the special projects, the funding amounts, we're not anticipating different funding amounts.
Other questions? I'm hoping this means all the materials were so clear, but, but please do feel free to ask any questions that are popping in mind.
Yeah, and if you were thinking about sending an email with a question, or if you already did send an email with a question, this is a good way to get an answer before next Wednesday. So go ahead, and even if you think you've already asked us the question, go ahead and ask it again, and it'll benefit other people.
This is Laura from Northwest Center. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I had emailed about this, but I'm just curious. We are currently, we have the DHH FRCs, and I am curious if we are supposed to be, do we need to fill out a new RFA or RFQ for the DHH to continue our DHH work, or do we just answer the supplemental special projects questions?
Great question. Yes, it will just be those supplemental special projects. And so that will be for any special project. And so for Northwest Center, it would be for the DHH FRC. It would also be for the parent engagement or parent ally project. For Children's Therapy Center, it would be for teacher of the visually impaired. And for Kindring, it would be teacher of the visually impaired and Cherish. I think that's all. But Laura, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And I'm just going to add to that, even if your special project is not currently funded with Best Start funds, we still want you to complete the special project section because it gives us the opportunity to use Best Start funds should that opportunity arise.
I'm curious if anyone has questions about when you might want to fill out an RFQ in addition to the RFA. Hoping that was clear, but want to make sure it was. So that the only required piece is the request for applications, but you do have the opportunity to do the request for qualifications in certain scenarios if you want to add something. So please feel free to ask questions about that as well.
Well, and since you asked it, let's answer that question. What are the scenarios where you might want to complete an RFQ? If you're a full service provider and you're seeking to become a deaf, hard of hearing provider, also, you would need to fill out the RFQ to become a deaf, hard of hearing provider. If you're a full service provider and you want to become an infant mental health provider outside of your existing boundaries, then you would fill out, or outside of your existing catchment area, you could fill out to become an infant mental health provider. If you're a deaf, hard of hearing provider that wants to become a full service provider, you could fill out the RFQ to become a full service provider, or to become an infant mental health provider. Are there any follow-up questions about that?
This is Anna Dodd with the Parent Infant Program. Can you all hear me?
Yes, hi Anna.
Oh, hello. Okay, I have a question about the RFQ with the DHH added to that for other full service agencies that want to add DHH services.
Mm-hmm.
We have three DHH programs, as we know. We're currently struggling with our own capacity issues of hiring staff. Constantly seeking additional funding in order to be able to provide more services to the area with qualified specialists. I'm curious why, if there's funding for deaf and hard of hearing or adding deaf and hard of hearing services in the county, why wouldn't that funding be provided to the three current programs that are already, I don't know what the word I'm trying to look for. I mean, I'm just curious what the thought process was behind that, and I'd like to have an open discussion about that if we could, just to see what you guys were thinking with this.
Great question, Anna, and we can talk more. We try to answer it here, but we're also happy to talk further as well. And I did send an email about this a while back to all three deaf, hard of hearing agencies, and if you reference that, it may help as well.
Oh, great, thank you. I'm still behind on my emails for my vacation.
Yeah, I know you were up there.
So it could very well be in there, so I can
No
look
worries.
at that too, but I don't appreciate it.
But I could certainly answer the question. So it's not additional funding. The funding is allocated on a per child amount. So this was really an attempt in recognition of the capacity struggles where in the past year, we've asked full service provider agencies to volunteer when they have a staff who could meet the qualifications to provide services to children who are deaf or hard of hearing. And that's been an informal process. So this allows us to do that more formally and review the qualifications as they relate to the teacher of the deaf criteria at the state level. And so it really just more formalizes what we can do when there are capacity challenges. It's so there wouldn't be any additional funding. It is more the funding that we share across every child served. So each agency will still get the amount of funding for each child that they're serving. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, excellent. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Sure.
And I'll just kind of reiterate, it is designed to increase capacity of our system to serve children who have needs, not to decrease capacity in any way.
Yeah, I'll add one more thought. It's also, the idea was that really for the first time in this contract, we put language around what it looks like for deaf, hard of hearing providers around their catchment area. So you have the option to say what your catchment area is. So if there's an area of the county that you're struggling to meet, it's, King County needs to facilitate finding providers that can cover that area of the county. So it was also in recognition of what a challenge it is to cover the whole county.
Yeah, so in fact, in the RFA, everybody needs to submit what their catchment area is. And that means the area that you will accept referrals and serve children in. And so we know that previously people have informally provided that information to Within Reach, but it needs to be formally provided through the request for applications.
Thank you so much for the clarification.
You're welcome. And you definitely talk more if you'd like. And we did get a similar question from someone else. So it's always nice to be able to answer whatever kind of questions we have that are waiting to be answered. There was another question recently from a different deaf hard of hearing provider about which application they would complete. And they would, all the deaf hard of hearing providers, the current 3, would complete the request for applications because you're already an existing provider. Other questions? We'll just wait another minute or so and give people a chance. If you want to jump in, you can type in or unmute yourself and verbally jump.
If you leave this meeting and have a question, do send it in and we will include it in the FAQs for next week.
And you're also all welcome to join the request for qualifications info session, which is at 3 o'clock today. All right. Okay. Thank you all. And if you're interested in joining later or next week in person, we'll see you then. All right. Have a great afternoon.